So the first thing we are going to do is to duplicate the layer by hitting Ctrl J on our keyboard. We'll turn off the background layer so we'll see its transparency. Now the next thing we are going to do is we are going to remove the background by just going to properties and selecting select subject. Photoshop is going to analyze your image and then select the subject automatically for you. So it has done the selection for you. So the next thing we are going to do is to remove the background by going to the layers panel and hitting on the max icon. Just as you can see my mouse pointing. So when we hit on it, the background is removed, right? But if you zoom in, you can clearly see that the background wasn't clearly removed in the bare side. So we are going to refine that. If you didn't see the properties, you can just go to Windows and properties, turn on properties, right? So after that, you come to the max and you come to select and mask, right? After selecting and mask, I want to come and hit on decontaminate colors and just take a look at the bare side. You can see that it has decontaminated the depth or the background color that was there, right? When you're done, you just hit OK. Now the next thing I would be doing is converting that layer into a smart object. So you right click and then you select convert to smart object. As simple as that. So now your image has been made in a way that you can come back and then come and re-edit if you need to do that. Okay. The next thing we'll do is to go to the shape icon and then just give it a black background color, right? So we are just going to pick the shape tool. We'll come and then we'll just draw a square around the subject, right? We'll change the color to black. Change the color to black. This won't do anything in the image adjustments. I'm just doing something so you get to see what we are doing, and we'll drag it beneath, so we'll get something like this, right? You get it. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to select our converted to smart object layer, go to camera raw filter, and here is one key thing you should do. Okay, you come and look for where they've written the detail, right? But before, let's do the comparison so you can see the before and after. So you come and pick the detail, right? You select the detail, you see the drop down menu, and then you increase the noise reduction, right? So when you increase it, you can just observe your image and then see what's happening, right? So you just increase it to your liking, right? This thing doesn't have any particular step, right? You just increase it to your liking and you add a bit of sharpness, right? But the noise reduction should be more than the sharpness for this to work perfectly, right? When you're done, you just hit OK. Okay, after that, let's see before and after. Let's see before and after. But before, let me just turn the black layer off so you can see before and after. Let me turn this layer on. Okay, so now see before, after, before, after. Exactly. So just as you can see, we've made decent progress. See before, after. So in the before, you can see a bit of noise and grain in the image, which we don't want to have that in our thumbnail, right? The next thing we do is we come to the effects panel and come and select brightness and contrast, and we'll decrease our brightness down a bit. We decrease our brightness down a bit. These things don't have actual values. You just play around with them until they suit with your image. But you just follow the steps I'm showing you, and you get exact same results. And you increase the contrast a bit, right? The contrast, you can just leave it to maybe 35. You just increase it until it sits well, right? When you are done, you make sure, let's see before, after, before, after. Okay, when you're done, you come and select your converted to smart object layer again. Come back to the effects panel, but this time you select the curves too, right? You select the curves. What we're about to do is we want to darken the dark side, right? We want to convert this image into a 3D image, right? So we just darken the dark side, and in the middle line, we just drop down the S curve, just like that. So once that is done, you just make sure you darken the image a bit, so you can just copy what I'm doing there. You just create 2 points like that. We just close it. When we are done, we just come and hit Ctrl I on our keyboard to invert it, right? So you can see nothing is really happening, right? But what this layer will do is, after I show you, understand what this layer is doing, we'll hit create clipping mark, so it just affects that particular image. You have to do that as well. When you're done, you come and pick your brush tool and make sure your foreground color is selected to white, right? You hit OK. When you are done, what this will do is, if we paint on the image, this will darken the image, right? So what we want to do is we want to make the dark sides darker and the bright sides brighter, right? So we'll zoom in, and then all the dark sides will be painted with a brush tool, right? So just take a look at something. If you just set the flow to 20, make sure the flow is set to 20 so it doesn't become too artificial, and then the opacity, you just be playing around with this as you go, right? The opacity doesn't really have a number, but you just play around with it and just start painting. So we want to darken the hair, right? So you just start painting like that, just as you can see me do. So I'm going to speed up this process a bit, right? So you just paint around all the dark sides, right? So the hair, the beard, just paint around them. So we'll do same for the beard as well, right? So just make sure we darken the beard a bit. And there's a trick, right? You can hit this command key on your keyboard and we'll bring this red highlight. So what this will do is it will show you the side that the painting has affected, right? So if it's in red, it's telling you that it has not been affected. But if it's in black, it has been affected, right? So just as you can see in the hair, it didn't affect, so we'll just paint it again, right? So yeah, and if you want to turn it back to preview its original thing, that same keyboard command, I don't know its name, I'll put it in here somewhere. So just hit on it again and then it will take you back to the original listing. Let's see before and after again. Before, after. Okay, I think this is good. So the next thing we are going to do is we are going to select the converted to smart object layer again, and this time come down to the effects control and come and select the curves again. This time I'll come to bring the brightness up a bit. So just follow what I'm doing on screen to bring the brightness up, right? So you just pull the highlights up a bit and then you increase the middle side a bit, right? So you just play around with it until it brightens, right? So we are just trying to brighten the face, right? We just brighten the face. So just as we did for the darkness, that's the same thing we are doing for the brightness. So we are just brightening the face, right? To give it that polished look on your thumbnails, right? To attract people to easily click on your videos. Okay, once that is done, we make sure that this is also a clipping mask, which is already, and we hit Ctrl I to invert it, right? So we'll take our brush tool again, the same procedure we did, but this time we'll paint around the bright spots. Let's increase the opacity, right? This time we just paint around the bright spot, right? So just as you can see me do, we just paint around the bright spot and then we'll increase the brightness or the lightness in those areas, right? So what you are doing here is you are creating a 3D image that has dark sides popping out and bright sides popping out, right? And that's what basically makes the thumbnail stand out. So let me just speed up this process. So you just paint around the bright sides. So once that is done, we'll come back to the convert to smart object layer again, but this time we'll pick the vibrance, right? And we'll increase the vibrance to 100. Just increase the vibrance, right? And make sure you've created a clipping mask, right? You can right click and hit create clipping mask, right? We can increase the saturation a bit, right? What we want to do with this is we want to affect the eyes, the teeth, and the lips, right? So after creating the clipping mask, we'll make sure it's created a clipping mask, and I will hit on the white side, and I will hit Ctrl I to invert it. So hit Ctrl I to invert it. Once that is, I will just do the same procedure, come to the lips and then paint the lips, and it will bring that pop in the lips, right? So that is basically what these thumbnails do, right? Let's increase the opacity to maybe 100, yeah, and let's just paint around that side, just as you can see me do like that. If you haven't subscribed, kindly hit the subscribe button so my channel reaches out to more people, other people get to see this tutorial as well. Subscribe. All right, so when we zoom out, you can see that maybe it's too reddish, right? So just come to the opacity on that vibrance layer and decrease the opacity a bit, and you can see that this starts to sit well, right? This starts to sit very well. We'll do same for the eyes as well. So you just paint around the eyes and it'll bring that pop in the eyes, right? So you're basically working on all the parts that you want to glow with the vibrance, right? So the vibrance just brings pop to it. Exactly. Once we are done, we'll select all the layers to that converted to smart object layer, and we'll hit Ctrl G on our keyboard to group them, right? So we'll hit Ctrl G on our keyboard to group them, right? And after grouping them, we'll convert it into a smart object. But before, let's hit Ctrl Z. before, let's duplicate it. So you hit Ctrl J, right? So we'll have 2 layers, so at least we'll have a safe layer, and we'll convert the duplicated layer into a smart object, right? What we are coming to do now is we are coming to add our final touch to it. So go to filter, go to camera raw filter, and this time we're going to work on the camera raw filters to bring that pop to it, right? So this time let's do the comparison again so you can see before and after. Okay, so we'll come to exposure, we'll bring the exposure up a bit. So this time you just play around with the slider so it sits well to bring that pop. You've already done the highlight and then the darkness side, right? So what this does is it has converted your image into a 3D image, right? So it gives it that pop, that cartoonish look, right? Cartoonish, realistic look, something like that. The shadows should always be raised, right? I've noticed that if you raise the shadows, it brings that look to it, right? So we'll increase the blacks, play around with it like that. So just look on the screen and just follow. We'll decrease the clarity a bit and the texture so it gets that smooth look like them. It's the beast type of thumbnails you get. We won't do anything on the vibrance and curves because we already worked on those things. Come and play around with the highlights, lights, darkness, and the shadows. The shadows is important, right? We don't want any darkness in this image. We always want it to pop because on the YouTube thumbnail, there are lots of thumbnails. So on the YouTube platform, there are lots of thumbnails, right? So if you are scrolling, you need something that you can easily see, and then just click on it. We'll come to the detail and then increase the color noise, right? You don't want a lot of color noise. We'll play around with the noise reduction. We'll add a bit of sharpening to it. We'll come down to the color mixer. And we'll add red, yellow, and orange, right? These are basically the colors in the image, right? So this time you just add them based on the colors you have in your image, right? I have those 3 colors in my image. That's why I'm bringing them up, right? So you just play around with them to see what they do. You toggle between saturation and luminance. I've made videos in depth on all those things on the color mixer to the camera raw filter, so you can just go and watch those videos, right? Pardon me if I'm talking really fast. I have a class to attend after this, so yeah. So you play around with this. When you're done, you just hit OK. So just as you can see, we've done a drastic change, right? You can leave it here and then your image would really pop out. So see before, after, right? I was in a rush with the dodge and bending, so you can see some sides were extreme dark. You can work on those things as well, but I believe you've gotten a concept on how these things bring life to your image, right?